On today's episode of Anime Afterthought, Higurashi, When They Cry New, Episode 2. Or is it Go Now? Yeah, there seems to be some confusion online whether or not this is a remake or an actual sequel, as AniList.co has decided to not only update the title, the image, but also say it is a sequel to the previous material, which leads to my said confusion. If this was a remake, yeah, I'll just stick with this and go back and watch the other stuff. But if it's not, I'm contemplating going back and actually watching the other material going forward. So let me know in the comments below. I really need your help. Should I just stick with this and then watch the material afterwards like I was planning? Or do I need to watch When They Cry, was it Kai and Ray? And I think there's a fucking another one I need to watch. I'm not 100% sure. So let me know. I mean, given that first scene, it leads definitely to some confusion. But for now, we'll just go over today's episode and hopefully I'll get some comments leading me in the right direction going forward. Now, last we left off, the first episode introduced us to our characters, as well as set up a very creepy atmosphere of this Hanamizawa village, especially given the fact that there was a murder and dismemberment hit here, but every time Keiichi, the main character, wants to talk about it, he is completely shut down in the most awkward, soul-shattering way. I mean, literally, I get goosebumps every time they decide to change the animation direction. But even though he is literally getting no answers, life goes on, as we see him live his day-to-day with his friends, Mion, Satoko, Reina, and Rika. The latter two actually close out last week's episode, with Keiichi trying to help Reina unearth a fried chicken store mascot statue from this giant pile of debris, the location of said dismemberment incident. We cut out the episode with her standing behind him with a giant fucking cleaver, and a post-credit scene with Rika and her scarlet eyes. Picking up today's episode, we get a kind of out of place at first conversation with a more mature Rika talking to presumably some kind of ethereal being, Hanoi, taking on the form of a little girl with horns, as they discuss temporal matters. It seems this shattered dimension shrine glass place Rika is familiar with, not only asking where this shard leads, but also how she presumably died or was killed, as we see Hanor inform her that this shard leads only to Run Road, and that is June 1983, which Rika is visibly and frantically upset, quoting, "What, wasn't 100 years enough?" And at this point, I kind of understand what's going on, especially given the fact that some of you may have hinted at a ReZero connection. It seems this is a time loop, in fact, probably a death loop. But even though Rika is visibly shaken at the fact that she has to return back to this particular date, her proclamations boast her confidence, saying, you know what, I'm not that little scared girl anymore, the one randomly throwing dies. I know what's going on. I know what's going on with the village. I know the truth. I know who killed Rika. And eventually this little scene transitions back into where we left off last week's episode. Now, nothing really happens in the interaction between Keiichi, who is currently overseeing this magazine about said damn incident with the murder and dismemberment, as he's going over the gory details. Even though Reina does pick up the cleaver and looks like she's about to drop it on his head, he quickly turns around after seeing her shadow, and it just basically startles him. Nothing happens. She's just there to, well, he's the one that asked for an axe, and that's what she brought him. But in the end, it took too long. It's getting dark, so they decide to head home, and basically the day starts anew, as we see them once again live out their slice of life. Today must be PE class at this rural village, and they decide to play zombie tag. This is where we get a couple convenient moments, especially when we see Sadako is chosen to be the first zombie and looks overwhelmingly unathletic, as well as leading us to an all-out tickle fight. So yeah, getting these really dark, unnerving scenes juxtaposed with these overly bright, vivid, light, warm, jovial scenes. Like I said, I'm waiting for something to happen. Something will happen. Especially given after everything is said and done, the day is over, we get two more very unnerving scenes with Reina, as Keiichi is watching the dirt off of the day. She is just behind him, and the image we see in the reflection of the mirror or the glass is kind of unnerving. It's the one where it's like a shadow over their eyes. You really can't see it. It's creepy. Of course, Keiichi turns around and it's just her, waiting to hand him a handkerchief to dry off. The next scene though, they're walking to get the statue once again. She has the cleaver. He offers to carry it for her, but she's like, no, like it changed the animation again, like the art style. It's very creepy. But then again, it leads us to another creepy scene where Keiichi is doing work and he is just hacking away at these boards that are covering up the statue until he starts getting really into it, and he has a flashback into the very first episode's very first scene where presumably he's the one beating the ever loving shit out of presumably his friends. This is enough to actually stop him in his motions. Of course, eventually he just, I don't know, gets over it as he continues hacking away, eventually unearthing the statue, which then again, this whole creepy scene leads us to another light one where eventually they take the statue home and he has firsthand experience dealing with Reina's habitat, I guess you'd put it. She sure does have a collection of eclectic giant statues and even mailboxes and other shit. And once again, another day has ended, and with their walk home, they once again run into Tomitake, the photographer. I thought this is where we're gonna get one of those, animation art changing style scenes as Kiichi begins to question what's up with him, admitting the fact that he is kind of suspicious and thought at first he was a detective or spy. Mion seems to laugh at this, stating, no, I just heard he's a bachelor and he's here meeting a girl. But once again, even in this little conversation, they seem to pan and focus on Reina. Now at this point, I'm assuming something either A is going to happen to her or she's gonna do something, seeing how she's the primary focus of the first 2 episodes. Now eventually it's later on in the day. It is the day of the Watanaganashi festival, something that the group said they were going to all go to early in the day. Specifically, Rika has a pivotal role as we see her adorn a priestess gown. How do I know that's a priestess gown? Well, Inuyasha. I'm pretty sure Kikyo was a priestess and that looks exactly like what she was wearing. See, anime does teach you some shit. Once again, they run into Tomitake where Rika pats his head. The group decides to imbibe in some of the festivities, eating cotton candy, shaved ice, takoyaki. Eventually, they do run in once again to Tomitake, who gets words of encouragement from Mion about his girl and a pat on the head from Rika. And eventually, it's time for this festival, the show to be put on where Rika is doing, I guess, a priestess dance. They're giving thanks to the futons and eventually will send the cotton down the river. That's an interesting tradition, to be completely honest. Now, meanwhile, when this was going on before, I guess Mion and Sadako try to give Reina and Keiichi some kind of time alone. Even they're trying to root for them as a couple. I'm not 100% sure, but we do kind of get a lovey-dovey moment between those two. Another lovey-dovey moment, or I shouldn't really call it that because I think this dude's gonna get fucking killed. Tomitake is meeting a woman down by the river, seemingly far away from everyone else that's going to this festival. And basically we're ending out this thing with Rika doing her little dance, and it's beautifully animated, by the way. That was probably the best thing about today's episode, was the animation of this dance. So yeah, that was episode 2. Now, like I said, take that first scene and mix it with the opening and the outro. We're almost definitely dealing with a death loop, and now the fact that we know Rika is aware, I'm more focused on her actual actions now and her goal, which is presumably that she has to stop her own death. Not to mention Keiichi and Reina's relationship. It's very jarring where we go from these innocent lovey-dovey moments with overt cuteness to these quite unnerving, dare I say, it's scary. These scary moments where you literally think Reina is going to kill him. So that whole situation is very unnerving. Not to mention, I hate to say it, but I think Tomitake is gonna fucking die. You are legit at a village known to have a murder and dismemberment, and you're meeting a chick down by the river by yourself. Yeah, that's something I wouldn't fucking do. Now, disregarding my confusion to whether or not this is a sequel, a reboot, a completely new story, dealing with death loops, I guess it can be its own thing. Even thanks to a comment, I see a comparison to Final Fantasy VII Remake where they imply that the original actually did happen. That kind of makes sense. If this is another loop, this is in fact its own story, yet all the events prior did happen. I understand the point, especially dealing with a death loop, but AniList changing all that shit on me really got me sus, really got me confused. But as far as this series goes, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I'm at a level where the suspense has hooked me. I'm waiting for something to happen. Not to mention, we know that this shit's gonna get bloody. The new opening, the new ending. Oh god, this series I got a feeling this shit's gonna get intense. Anyways, with all that being said, and me thoroughly enjoying this new tryst out into the horror genre, I honestly cannot wait for future episodes.